Dr. Bhima Rai Metri. We all welcome you. We also welcome our panelists who are joining us virtually. We have with us Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji, he's MD and CEO, BSc Limited, who has joined us virtually. We are privileged to have with us virtually Dr. Madhu Vij, Professor in Finance, Faculty of Management Studies, FMS Delhi, who is also Central Council member, ICSI, and a government nominee. We are privileged to have with us Dr. Shailendra, Director IIM Ranchi. We have with us Dr. B.S. Sahai, Indian Institute of Management, Jammu. We welcome Professor Mahadev Jaiswal, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I request our esteemed council member, Shri Devendraji Deshpande ji, to kindly introduce and welcome the dignitaries formally. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's start the session with the welcome address of Dr. Devendra Deshpande ji.
Good afternoon, all. I welcome you all to this first technical session of 48th National Convention. It is one of its kind that we are holding this National Convention in a hybrid mode, wherein not only the panelists but the participants all are present by two ways. One is by physical mode and other people are from virtual mode. So this is first of its kind of a national convention, and I'm really happy to inform you that there are around 4,000 plus people attending this particular program. As you all are aware, and as we discussed in the inaugural session also, the theme of the conference, national conference, is governance from grassroots to global. When we talk about grassroots to global, there are 3-4 aspects which we have already discussed. One is from ancient scriptures till today, how the corporate governance or the governance has come up. Secondly, we have also discussed about Panchayati Raj, from Panchayati Raj to big corporate houses, how the corporate governance or the governance has come out. And the third and most important point which we are going to discuss today is the governance. And when we talk about grassroots, we take students as the grassroots. And from students stage till making them a big corporate professional is grassroots to global. So we need to make our students of CS fraternity as well as students of all other fraternities capable enough to face the corporate world, which is a strict corporate world. And this session has been devised with the purpose wherein the top universities like IIMs, University of Pune, everybody is representing. So I welcome all the dignitaries who are present here physically as well as present here through virtual mode, and I request them to give a big round of applause to all these people so that they will also feel that they are going to discuss so many important things about the students and the future aspects of our profession as well as the corporate world. So India is one of the youngest countries wherein average age of India is 29 years, and we are going to be very, very strong country in years to come. A lot of corporates are coming to India and they are doing a lot of activities in India, and it is going to be very helpful for young generation to develop themselves, empower themselves, build smarter. We have to build the smarter workforces for future of India and also corporate India. That is why we are talking about what are the requirements, what are the needs of changing and making these workforces smarter. They are smarter. I understand from my daughters and from the next generation that they are smarter than us, but we have to make some arrangement. We have to take certain steps, and all these educational institutes are taking various steps to make them smarter and making them ready to face the challenges in corporate world. At this point of time, I request Ashish Chauhan ji, who is a Managing Director and CEO of BSc Limited, who is joining with us on a virtual mode. I request him to give opening remark on this particular topic of building smarter workforces, the altering dynamics and needs of India INC. Over to you, sir. Ashish sir, over to you.
Mr. Deshpande, my colleagues on the dais.
Just a second, I think.
Can you hear me? Okay. Connected? Okay, so let me move forward. Thank you, Mr. Deshpande. Colleagues physically on the dais, I can see a lot of friendly faces from various IIMs, FMS, and many other places. So wonderful to see all of you, and welcome to the ICSI's 48th convention. I am also feeling honored to be here in front of you. I think we are pretty much 30 minutes behind schedule, so I won't take much of your time. But I'll just point out a few things. Earlier, I used to say till last year, the technology changes everything. And the societies which are able to harness the newer technologies, the societies will come up before others in the race which happen each day, every moment of our lives. And now, after this year, I think 2020, we all have figured out that in addition to even accidents or new situations also change everything. What was not even thought about 7, 8 months back uh, suddenly became reality, and the entire world went into a lockdown of various types. And that has accelerated trends which would have taken us years or decades to actually come about. And suddenly, India as well as rest of the world are going through these issues of COVID and the ramifications of that. I think India has, being a young population with new infrastructure, we have been lucky in India leapfrog in our technology paradigm, that we have gone into straight away 4G and many other things that has allowed India to actually move forward much faster than rest of the world. The rest of the world is going through what we call reset, which we are also going through. And so if the world was at 100, we were at 60 in the beginning of 2020. And today, the world has come down to probably 60, and we have come down from 60 to 40. We have sort of to catch up with the rest of the world. We have much shorter distance to cover, and we have actually worked much harder. If you look back in 2020, the rest of the world, in a way, was run out of India. All our BPOs, all the banks of the world, all the stock exchanges, all the retail transactions, everything of the world were happening through Indian subsidiaries or Indian BPO providers. And that's where even despite our 70-day full lockdown and then sporadic lockdown and elsewhere, we have been able to run the rest of the world and their IT technologies. I think it's a very good sign for all of us that the trends that are of using technology are accelerating, and our smart workforce, which has not been trained to be smart, they have been inherently smart, and they've adapted to what is the changing situation. I think yesterday also in the interaction between Mr. Mukesh Ambani and Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, Mr. Ambani commented that somehow 4 years back or 5 years back, if the same COVID had come, we would not have been very well prepared as a society. But today, in 2020, we have been very well prepared, and I think I agree with him that today, in last 4 or 5 years, post demonetization, post 4G introduction into Indian system, we have come a long way. Of course, we have a longer way to go. Many of our students in the kindergartens, in other places, are still not having those smartphones. They are not having the equipments to study, and it is an onus for all of us to actually ensure that we provide and we reach out to them so that they do not lose their day-to-day learning. But other thing which I want to discuss today, probably which may help the ICSI students and even the members in the long run, is that our entire framework for last 5,000 years has been about learning. We are taught how to learn. We are taught how to answer things. We are not taught how to question things. How to create the right question is actually the ideal education. Somehow, our entire framework is about giving answers to what teacher asks us. But we'll have to actually come down in a new world to say what are the questions to ask, how to create those questions, how to understand the rest of the world around you. And I think that is going to be very, very important. The second part is about the unlearning part. We have in Hinduism the four ashrams, the uh, 25 years of each stage of your life, you go through from Balashram to sort of Grihasthashram to Vruddhashram. And for me, broadly speaking, 25 years of our first part of our life we used to learn, and then next 75 years, if we remain alive, we were supposed to use that knowledge to earn our livelihood. I think slowly that is going to go away. Now, uh, the learning will have to be much faster, and unlearning, which never was the case before, is going to happen even faster. So we'll have to train our youngsters, including in the ICSI membership, to make them unlearn things. Newer trends will come, we'll have to learn about them, and that is where our youngsters excel. But we'll have to also teach them how to unlearn what they've learned, which may not be that great now, not that relevant. And going forward, they have to create newer and newer paradigms. For example, till 2013, we were all studying and becoming masters of the Companies Act 1956. And 2013 onwards, it's the Companies Act 2013, but it is also changing every day, which was not the case with Companies Act 1956, right? So why I am telling you this is this learning and unlearning and asking questions are going to be very important. And of course, the technology is going to change the paradigm completely. I have been discussing with governments, with central government, state governments, also with the entrepreneurs across the world. And one thing which has come to my mind is that the future wealth uh, will be largely about the digital part or the health. It is not going to be about how many square feet of land you have or the physical buildings you have. Of course, it is going to remain there, but the larger wealth that is going to be created will be in digital format, whether it is music, whether it is knowledge, whether DNAs, how to change those RNAs and DNAs using CRISPR. All those things are going to be basically wealth of a society. And that is where all the people, especially in a growing society, young society like India, will have to learn that the digital wealth or the demat wealth or the health part, how do we basically quickly catch up or even go beyond the rest of the world? We have done wonderfully well during COVID period by staying sort of on top of it. We have also sent a lot of medicines and a lot of doctors to the rest of the world. But still, uh, in the monetary terms, we are still far behind the developed countries, and it's time for us to actually catch up and go beyond them. The payment processing part, which is where the fintech comes in, I think is one of the best in the world in India. Last year at this time, almost to the date, I was speaking at UN in New York, and I talked about how great India's payment framework is. Last week, in fact, this week, the RBI has now announced real-time gross settlement (RTGS) payment framework on 24 by 7 basis with no cost. I think it's wonderful background to what we are going to discuss today. But the health and the fintech, these two are going to be the fulcrum on which India is going to develop going forward. Uh, some of the examples which I have discussed with over last several months, one IT company, a very small company in Pune, it was servicing or it does service the rest of the world in big data and cloud and all. And they actually have increased their uh, manpower by double in the COVID period for the number of orders they have been able to get. So that is one example I wanted to give you, that there are gloom and doom scenarios being projected everywhere, but some portions of the Indian economy are doing wonderfully well, and they are the engines of growth which will take India not only in the near future but also in really long-term future. Another example, yesterday, a young lady had come to meet me. She runs the distribution business for food in Mumbai, and she has recently started in September a business of including additional things like cashew nuts and other things. And she is pretty much having double the business in the last 12 months. But interestingly, she said she never had a bad day, even in March, April, May, June, because they were also connected to the e-commerce and the e-commerce orders started going up. And so she actually never retrenched her people. She has 50, 60 people working with her. And so that's another eye opener to me, saying that even some of the businesses we thought which were going down are still doing well. Yesterday evening, I had another meeting with a steel trader who trades steel for a living, and he had some horror stories about how the imports have been stopped even for the steel which India doesn't produce, and that is actually creating a tremendous problem for the auto exports and other things, where our local producers are not able to produce the steel required of the grade required, but somehow due to a variety of reasons, the anti-dumping duty and stoppage of import of high-end steel, we have actually done a disservice to the the smaller steel tertiary and secondary kind of users, and they are not being allowed to actually use good steel to produce good material which can be exported. The stock exchanges continued from day one. In fact, on March 22nd, when Honorable Prime Minister announced his lockdown, within 1 minute, I wrote on the Twitter replying to him saying that BSE will continue to remain open from tomorrow. And I started getting inundated by a variety of calls from media and my members saying, here people are thinking of dying and you are trying to keep the markets open. But the markets remain open, and since then, March 23rd onwards, we have done wonderfully well. The liquidity has been provided to the market every day. Billions and trillions of dollars of trades are happening. And even for fundraising, in last 7 months from April 1 till now, we have raised almost 13 lakh crore rupees, which is the same as the entire last year's amounts. So effectively, we have raised tremendous amount of money, provided liquidity to the corporate sector, and that was what the need of the hour was. We could have actually gone down, kept the market closed, and it would have created tremendous panic for people who hold assets. We allowed them to sell their assets, take liquidity, and slowly the market, which went down by 40%, is now going above its previous highs, which were seen in February or January of 2020. So effectively, the stock markets and financial sector in India their IT systems are run out of India. And the last part is that the industry, actually, if you look at the new results that have come last quarter as well as now, the results that will come in January, you will see tremendous growth in their profits. And that is going to be anachronistic in a way that we always thought that last 6 months the markets have been bad, the industry has been doing badly. How is it that their profits are going up? Because some of the expenses they were doing, probably that has gone down. The demand has not gone down, and imports have come down. So the existing productions have actually continued to remain. So some of the large companies which are listed on BSE, you will see that they are doing exceedingly well beyond what they were doing in January or February. And that's where I think you've seen GST numbers now also going beyond the pre-pandemic numbers. So effectively, India has come out of this pandemic with flying colors. It has also improved its own image in the world markets, and also it has become much more confident nation. So for me, the smartness of our young population has saved the day for us. But going forward, we will also have to unlearn newer things, learn newer things, and also continue to innovate and invest in ourselves. So thank you very much for calling me, and really appreciate being here today. Thank you.
Your opening remarks. Actually, the wonderful thing which has been transpired from his speech is asking questions. We are always, as a student, we always write the answers, but asking questions is also important. So a different thought which has come from his opening speech. So I request Dr. Maitri ji, Director IIM Nagpur, to just give a opening remarks. What are his thoughts on the topic and on the theme?
So good afternoon, esteemed panel members, The topic building smarter workforce, the altering dynamics and needs of India. So it is a very interesting topic. And in this time of pandemic is one of the disruption and continuously digital disruption is happening. And in such a circumstances, very recently, Government of India announced NEP 2020. So all put together, how to build a smart workforce. I think the way we used to teach the students, the way we used to prepare the students, that has changed and it is going to change a lot. One is due to NEP, second is due to the disruption, not only COVID, but also digital disruption. Now, if you look at the current corporate world where our students are going, in the corporate world, students are going to join the companies which are not yet born. They are going to take a role which are not yet defined. So 15 years back, what was impossible, that has become possible today. So in such a circumstances, maybe if you look at the 15 years back, people used to go to the college for knowledge. Now the capabilities and competencies have taken over the knowledge, and knowledge is available with Google. So now the important part for education, preparing a smart workforce, is basically we have to revisit the way we are teaching, whether it is fitting into the corporate world environment or not. If you look at the corporate world, three things are happening distinctively in the corporate world in this disruptive digital world. One is the learning goals, they have changed. In the corporate world, learning goal has shifted from inculcating skill to the building mindset and capabilities. This is one important shift. So basically building the mindset and capabilities has taken over the inculcating the skill required at the present workplace. Number two, the learning method has changed. So learning method is, it is more of experimental and more of immediate than the traditional way of teaching, keeping the corporate world into the mind. So that change has happened. So it is immediate and the content is also immediate. So it means it is keep on changing, and that is where lifelong learning, relearning, unlearning, skilling, reskilling, upskilling. So that is where continuous learning is going to be the phenomena, and that is where the important part is focus on mindset change, focus on immediate learning and continuous learning. Number three is the learning departments in the corporate world. That learning departments change is, learning departments are really learning. Even in NEP 2020, if you look into that, learning to learn, important concept has been brought. So in corporate world also, learning, departments are learning and they are agile, and also learning departments, not only agile, they are also strategic in nature. So lifelong learning, basically learning is endless. So these are the three things happening in the corporate world. Keeping those three things in mind, if you bring back that to the academic, because we prepare the students for the corporate world, so to build a smart workforce, smart students, so basically the way we teach, that has to change. Instead of traditional way of teaching, compartmentalization of teaching the subject, now the team teaching has to come. Team teaching in the sense, teaching has to be phenomena-based learning. It is called as a PhenoBell. P-H-E-N-O-B-L. PhenoBell means phenomena-based learning. Given the situation, team of teachers and team of students find the solution for the given situation. Probably recently you might have seen a city like Pune, there was a flood. Entire city was flooded with water. Now if that situation is given to the students, now team of teachers from different specialized field, maybe from OB, maybe from strategy, operations, marketing, all come together and in a team, finance, information systems, all come together and they advise the students and students will come out with the solution based on the situation. Because in this disruptive world, context is changing. So every new context, a new kind of decision making will come into picture. Same style of decision making is not going to work out. So that is where now the time has come, whether leaders will change or not, leadership has to change because the contexts are changing. Future is fluid. Future workforce is fluid. Future strategy is fluid. And of course, leadership is also fluid. That is a contextual leadership. And that is where, to align the corporate world, we have to bring these things, project-based learning instead of, compartmentalization of teaching. These are the changes one has to bring. And to begin with, these are my initial remarks. And later on, I will come back for any queries and questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Actually, learning to learn is something which we got to know from your opening speech, and it was wonderful concept. And definitely, we as corporates also and otherwise also we should learn to learn. So, a wonderful concept. Now, I request Dr. Madhu Vij, who is council member, that is government nominee of ICSI. She is present virtually. So, I request her to kindly give her opening remarks on the theme of the topic.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. And
Over to you, Madhu ma'am.
can you hear me now? Can you hear? Huh? Good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to all the dignitaries present here. Thank you to ICI, because I must thank you, Deshpande ji and Ashish ji, for this kind of effort you have taken and organizing this conference in difficult times, in areas which are completely relevant to today's scenario. To even throw a little light, and I'll also keep my remarks, brief, how to build smarter workforce. I think we need to take a little cue from this question which has been disturbing us from the very beginning. What is the new normal? So after COVID, after the disruption, what is the new normal? And the way we have worked out this is, and I find, that everybody you talk to and, the literature which comes says that the new normal will not be a straight line. It'll be a curvy path. So if the new normal is going to be a curvy path, then I'm sure that when we are going to build smarter workforce, they will also need to be completely agile, as Professor Mehri has said. They will need to be inherently smart. And as Ashish said, and I completely agree with him on this, that, the present generation is inherently smart. So the solution will be, I would say, each organization, each academic institute will need to find its own solution. No one size fits all, which we have learned from the various crises we have had. So how do you build a smarter workforce? I would say we will need to trim fat and add muscle. That is one. Digitalization, we really need to go all the way. So it's not that you adopt or be digitally savvy in small steps. So that is another part I would emphasize. Whether you call it digitally savvy or you call it, I would say, dynamic stability in terms of a digital context. We'll need to emphasize both. And the diversity in the workforce. And when I'm saying diversity in the workforce, my focus here is both in terms of productivity and efficiency. Now, to add on to what one has already said, the flexi working, and the kind of, the whole environment in which we have been working, I think we really need to take this forward. Yes, if you were to highlight, let's say, 2 or 3 important dimensions on which we need to focus a little more, yes, a solution-based approach is what we need. In fact, Professor Maitre has just emphasized, that's precisely what design thinking is all about. Earlier, we all thought design thinking was only for the manufacturing sector. Now we find that it could be definitely true for the education sector also, to the academic institution also, where you focus on the solution and not the problem. In addition to that, you could talk about skills like innovation, creativity, and so on and so forth. So, the present workforce needs to harness and I would say analyze much more data, much more information than what we all were trying to do, and keeping this as an important strength of our present generation, we need to keep this in mind. To talk very briefly about the educational institutions and the NEP which has come up, yes, the NEP also emphasizes that we need to link everything to the market. So institutions, universities, which have their eye on the market in terms of what is the demand by the industry, I think that's where we will be able to, I would say, bridge the gap and ensure that it helps our students occupy different leadership roles for which the IIMs are training them. In fact, a lot of other B schools also. I should not leave out the name of FMS. So this whole focus would help us to bridge the gaps in the various skills, and then collaboration with industry, uh, ensure that the student gets hands-on experience, a real life experience is, I think, something which is an absolute must in today's scenario. So what do we focus on? I would say we need to really focus on how to create value for tomorrow. How do you harness technology in such a way that it adds on? Uh, More than anything, the present COVID scenario has taught us, let me say, we are all talking about the COVID as a black swan event. And you cannot really link COVID to any other event we have witnessed till now. So there have been various other crises, could be the global crisis or the other crisis we talk about. But the COVID crisis is unique because it has a human angle to it. And if it has a human angle to it, whatever technology can do, the role of soft skills, I would say, the more we emphasize, the more it will lead us to the path of success. So soft skills, is along with technology, I would say, would help us to, I would say, reinvent us, ensure that we come out of this pandemic in a much better way. And the good news is, like what Ashish also said, and what we are hearing from our placement reports, that there is a good, a report in terms of, the kind of market our students are getting, the kind of, I would say, the summer placements, which, all B schools have just, I would say, would have just completed or a few months back. Now, that is, I don't know, but we do take that also as one of the indicators. So let me close here, and again would welcome questions on this, because I would like to hear to the other dignitaries present here that the present scenario has ensured and created a scenario, a situation where you have skills, develop skills which are both agile, cost effective, and sustainable. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much for your insightful thoughts, and especially the new normal is going to be difficult. That is what I got it from your opening speech. And That will definitely help us to go ahead in our corporate world. I request Professor R. Nagarajan ji, who is Director of IIM Amritsar, to give his special remarks.
I keep forgetting that I have to remove my mask. Sometimes I think that I'm eating with the mask. Okay, so forgive about that. Thank you very much for this opportunity. In addition to what my distinguished colleagues mentioned and what we are going to hear from the rest of the panelists, I just want to emphasize a few things. That I'll start with a story that many times we know of companies which were in one type of business 30, 40 years ago, and today when you really look at that, these companies are nowhere, where it originally was. Why I am saying that story is that, one example I can give you is that the Greyhound, the famous, the transport company in the US, it started off as Greyhound, and the stockholders who held stock in Greyhound ultimately ended up with a Dial soap company. So that type of transformation, I don't want to go into the whole story, but the reason I mentioned that is that the corporates are changing. Okay? Therefore, can we really say that, what type of skills that we are going to impart on our students or our younger generation, keeping in mind that, what we impart in them today may not be the one that they will have or that will be useful to the students as well as corporates in the next 5 years. Now, having said that, I just read that about 60% of the people had a sense of job security because they feel that the skills that they have may not be useful to them, or this augmented reality or assisted reality, all of them may actually replace, or technology will replace many of the human jobs, which might very well happen. I'm not going to deny that. But I don't want to repeat the COVID situation. Here are the 2 or 3 things that I feel will be very important for us, in terms of skilling and educating our workforce for the present as well as for the future. One is we would need very higher level skills that can help companies as well as India Incorporated to exploit the use of technology. Technology is freely available anywhere in the world now. We can buy anything from anywhere. Similarly, what we have can be purchased by somebody else. But then what is going to give the sort of competitive advantage for the people is the human skills. Yeah, short story, an interesting one. So this was my first week or first month in the US as a student. I went to the McDonald's to buy something, that orange juice and a French fry. So I could see the board that, what the price was. So I gave the lady about $2, right, thinking that's what the price was. Then she kept insisting, no, it is $2.75 or $3 something. I said, look at the price tag that you have put. When you add up both, it's $1.70 plus tax. What she did was, these were like computerized one, so she just pressed the wrong button, which charged me for a different product. The reason I mention this story is that a person should know, right, even with technology, right, what is the right use of the technology, and that can come only with the human mind. Okay, so therefore, we would need to focus mostly on the higher level skills of how we can exploit technology as opposed to fearing that the technology is going to take away our jobs. The second point is that, we need to have constant and dynamic interaction with the industry. The industry needs are changing. Now even technology is changing, industry changes, so how do we really make sure that is where the self-learning as well as the need for individuals to take responsibility for their own upskilling, reskilling or unlearning, whatever we want to call it, is very important to us. The third thing that we have, we talk about analytics and all that. Now the volume of data that is available to human beings is way too high. You can download data in thousands of pages of reports will come to us. Our computers can do many of these analyses for us. But the reality is that, what is it that, who can really be smarter, right, in terms of deciphering the underlying story behind the data? Which data is important for decision making? Okay, that is one of the major skills that we need to have. And the final thing that I want to emphasize is that, the virtual reality, the COVID situation, I can tell you this, COVID may disappear, but companies have learned how to run the operation, right, without physically being present in the office. I don't know how many of you read the Google CEO's email to all the employees 2 days ago. He said that, like when the COVID is over, like after September 2021, everybody will come to office 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and they will work from home the rest. And I won't be surprised, if the same trend catches up in India and rest of the world also, with other companies also, okay? Now, the important skill that we need to learn is to have this virtual collaboration, okay? Many times we may be working with someone who we may have never seen or we may never see right in person. And this may also happen at a global level, which means that, we need to have to work with or learn the skills for working in a cross-cultural setting or managing diversity. Okay. I have a few other points, but I don't want to spend more time. So I'll be happy to answer any questions after that or available for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot for your thoughts, and definitely pressing right button and which button to press is very, very important point which we got to know. And work from home to work from anywhere is going to be new normal in coming days. So on this note, I request Dr. Vinita Sahai ji, who has joined us on a virtual mode. She is director from IIM Gaya. So I request her to kindly.
Sir, she could not join due to some reasons.
Okay, no problem. So I request Dr. Shailendra Singh ji, who is joining from IIM Ranchi, director. So he is also joining us from in virtual mode. So I request him to give remarks and his special address on the topic.
So Deshpande ji, Ashish Chauhan ji, Madhu Vid ji, Professor Vidya Sahai ji, Professor Maitri ji, Professor Nagarajan ji, and Professor Nitin Karnakar ji. I'm happy to be connected with this webinar that is being discussed on new normal and what will be the smart workforce in new normal. Let me just say that the skills of 21st century will be relevant even in new normal. What can be characterized new normal, what we used to earlier called in strategic management, VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So the disruption that is created because of any reason, including corona crisis, pandemic, is a VUCA or little much more than VUCA. And as we were discussing earlier before beginning of this webinar, that we Indians have learned to work virtually. So this is something what traditionally we used to call need is the mother of invention. We were having all these facilities of connecting virtually much earlier than pandemic, but the frequency of uses of those instruments, those tools were very rare, and mostly we used to travel. I today see that 90% of the travel costs that we were putting that has been saved this year, because we have conducted all the meeting, board meeting, ministry meeting, even collaborators meeting in India and abroad through connectivity, these internet tools and internet portals. So this is going to be new normal, as Professor Nagarajan has already said, that come April 2021, the workforce will mostly be located either in home or anywhere, and connecting to their offices and their clients' offices. So this brings us to very critical skill, that is the information technology skill, internet skill, and ICT literacy. See, even if you are very great at technology level, there are something called this human machine. So human machine has also been dealt. I personally classify that into cognitive skills and emotional skills or affective skills. So cognitive skills that we require at this point of time: critical thinking and problem solving. What's the important thing that has to be uh, done, and what among various issues, what is the most important issue we have to prioritize, and that requires critical thinking and problem solving. Creativity and innovation will be another very important skill, and communication. So these will be considered cognitive skills. But equally important, although they are not emphasized and paid in absence of cognitive skill, what Madhu ma'am said, soft skill. We in behavioral science now call it emotional intelligence, or the personality skills. And among them, resilience is nowadays coming at the top. Even if you are getting set back, you are not going back into cocoon, you are not going into shell, you are coming back again with the energized, invigorated strength and fighting back. So resilience will be a very important skill. Apart from that, uh, soft skill that is called empathy. Means how the other party is thinking, how the other party is feeling, what are the other party's requirement. That sensitivity all of us have to develop within the workforce, and that's going to help in all kinds of service delivery. Then what I say, self-management. See, on a small provocation, people get angry. A small provocation, people start fighting. And instead, we have to control ourselves to the extent that it maintains civility in interaction. What we are seeing, that lot of crimes, lot of agitations and that we are losing our civility. So we have to not to lose our civility. And then I would like to say another emotional and cognitive skill that is very much required is a flexibility. We are able to work um, as the situation demand, and not crib for that, see, I have to change very fast. And what has already been said by earlier panelists, learning to learn and learning to unlearn, that is very important. Perhaps Chauhanji has made that statement. See, when I was doing my law in Delhi University way back in 1994, in the last semester, we were taught a course called Interpretation of Statutes. What they said, that whatever 32 laws that were in syllabus we have already taught, but when you will be going in the field and practicing the law, many new law will come. Then how will you interpret? So principles of learning and principle of interpretation, how to check and what is the implication of those statutes. So same way in our practice of learning and practice of adjustment, what is the process that we should develop understanding and make our student develop the appreciation that content may not be important, and that may become relevant and irrelevant by the passage of time and by passage of change of context. But the process through which we have to solve the problem, that we should understand and imbibe, and by that we can be much smarter and we can develop better and smarter workforce. I will stop here on my initial comments, and I am available for any queries and questions during the session. Thank you.
Thanks for your remarks. I request now Professor Nageshwar Raoji, Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, to say a few words about the theme and enlighten us.
Honorable President ICSI, Shri Ashish Garg ji, distinguished council members, fellow members, more than 3 lakh learners of ICSI, and distinguished delegates. ICSI is doing a great job during the last 52 years. And now the time has come when it has to address to the national aspirations, that is building smarter forces to attain our national goal of 5 trillion economy within a shortest possible time. How to go for it? If you look at the national education policy, it lays thrust on multidisciplinary focus. It talks about the promotion of skills. It talks about nurturing values. It says that we should not promote the rote learning. How to go for it? Till this point of time, for the last 70 to 80 years, our focus is on program-based learnings. In ICSI also, we are having an executive program consisting of 9 or 8 papers, then professional stage that also consists of 9 papers. If a student attempts and clears out of 8, 6 only, he will not get any credit for that. If a student attempts all the 8 and then 7 from the professional, then again his program will not be complete. Time has come to move towards the course-based learning. Why I'm telling this point emphatically is edX and Coursera, it has come to India during this COVID period in an emphatic way. And they were promoting their courses. Why courses? Because you can add these courses to any of your programs. In order to strengthen any of our programs, if we add the related or unrelated courses, your brain power, it will further strengthen, your innovation capabilities, it will also improve. And you can have a broader canvas. In India also, since 2016, we are having Swayam portal. And more than 3,000 courses are existing. The courses, they range from engineering, the courses, they range from management, humanities, social sciences. And the pedagogy is the 33 Swayam Prabha channels, the learning through home. It's possible. Before COVID, this we were doing it. Registration is free. Certification is being done by MHRD. And that certification is valid for the credit transfers. ICSI can also come forward in this endeavor. It is an institution which was established by an act of parliament. It can also promote some of those courses which may be relevant to their professional colleagues, 8 plus 9 and plus 4 or 5 extra, which they feel that these courses, they may build their manpower much more smarter, much more to the needs of the country. And at the same time, the people who are not their students, not their learners, if they want to study those courses, let that accreditation process, let that evaluation process, it may go on. As Swayam is going on in our country, more than 3,000 courses and 2 crore learners, 2 crore learners, they are registered by the end of this November. Now those courses, they're also being translated into the regional languages, 8 regional languages. A lot of work is going on. And ICSI has got a big brand name. Suppose if a learner of ICSI wants to strengthen the financial management course, right now it is only one course here. He would like to add 2 or 3 more courses so that he may become much more smarter. Management accounting course, even law course, he would like to add 2 or 3 more courses so that he may contribute more significantly to the cause of the nation. And this is possible. And the things which are essentially required are 4-quadrant approach, e-resources, already they have developed it. They are reaching to the learners through videos. The discussion forums is there, and evaluation is also there. The thing which they have to remember is, now they can certify even the courses also, which has become a worldwide phenomena all over the globe. Even in India also, since 2016 it is going on, and during this COVID-19, the number has swelled up by 50 lakhs more. This is which I intend to share with you as my introductory remarks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot for your remarks. Actually, there are also a lot of courses which ICSI are managing. And in this year, we have almost launched around 18 different courses for our members. So post-membership courses, certificate courses, and crash courses. This is what we have done during this 1 year. I request now Professor Nitin Karmalkar, Vice Chancellor of Savitri Phule University, that is Pune University, as we all know. I request him to give his remarks on this particular topic.
Good afternoon. Dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, many of the directors of the IIM and already have spoken about how to create a smart workforce. Mine is a state university, 750 affiliated colleges, 150 management institutes affiliated, 150 engineering colleges affiliated, 7.5 lakh students enrolling for their graduation every year. And they come from all different backgrounds. Generally, being a state university, a public university is meant for masses and not for classes. Of course, classes are most welcome, but generally, who have money, they generally go for private institutions. So creating basically a smart workforce from this kind of a, I would say, multi-faceted, I would say, student community is a big task. But COVID provided many challenges, but at the same time, basically challenges to a great extent. Students themselves converted them into opportunities. And that is what I would like to share rather than preaching about how to create workforce, a smart workforce. I would rather share my experience, what happened during the pandemic. See, it all began in the month of March, all of a sudden when the exam was about to begin or some papers are already started, and then the lockdown was declared. And since then onwards, we are worried how are we going to conduct the examination, how students are going to get forward into their next, say, semester or next year. Then adding to this particular problem, the state government had a different notion about examination. They said you just allocate them the degrees without conducting examination. So all different problems. And then when I spoke to the student and especially the research community on the campus, I said this Zoom through which you can start teaching them and all that. They said it's good to teach them if they have the facilities available. Because internet connectivity is the issue, bandwidth is the issue, and having a good device is the issue. So maybe few students in the Pune district perhaps can access those classes, but what about those students who are generally in the rural background, have moved out to their respective places? How are you going to approach them? And then when a challenge was thrown to my own technical team, I said create something of our own, which to an extent would be very well accessible to every one of us, and create basically a platform through which dissemination of knowledge will happen. A just small pat was required on the back of these people. Workforce was there. They were smarter than me, and they started working on it and created a wonderful platform which is accessible to even in a remotest possible area as such. Remotest in the sense where there's a very feeble connectivity. Second was basically, as I said, when you intend to generate good workforce from the student, you require to have very smart and innovative teachers or mentors also. The teachers themselves, they were struggling. How am I going to deliver my talk? This pedagogy is different. This is not the way, the normal way of teaching student, going to the class and from their body language you understand whether whatever that I'm teaching has reached to him or not. And therefore, first of all, the most important requirement was there to mentor the mentors themselves, basically. How to teach. That pedagogy is altogether different. If I keep on talking for a long 1 hour, you have to think about the data pack they carry, the student. if one lecture, two lectures, and beyond that, obviously, you will not have access to anything because its data pack is over. So anytime, anywhere, with any device, with this kind of a technology, with this kind of a innovation, perhaps, we started teaching them. Then during the COVID, when I told them, like, basically, this is an emergency kind of a situation, the healthcare issue, how do we help the society? And then for the first time, they came out of the campus and started learning on their own. So it was more of an experiential learning, getting into the society, understanding their problems, and so on and so forth. You all know that basically the lockdown was not only meant for avoiding basically this transmission of disease, but at the same time getting medically prepared also. And from that point of view, the simple thing that ventilators, which were very feeble in number, when this idea was given to them, in a team form they started working and created one of the best ventilators. Today they are virtually actually doing their own business, and they are providing this whole set of ventilators to outside countries as such. So students are smart. What is required is basically to tell them, to guide them properly, and secondly, basically, ask them to come out of the campus. More of an experiential learning is required, more of a collaborative kind of a learning is required, and that is what perhaps is the crux of the new education policy, which provides for the first time an occasion wherein there's a concept of liberal education. Anything, whatever that you are interested in, rather than just confining him to the classroom, to the given basically traditional knowledge. Instead, a choice is given to him, and then whatever he likes the most, in which he can make a career. And that is how basically the best of the smart workforce can be created. Technology, no doubt, is important. Technology disruptions are very much required. Otherwise, the proctored examination wouldn't have been possible in absence of artificial intelligence, in the absence of these kind of innovation like machine learning and all that. A proctored examination wherein the AI monitors basically the movement of the student, whether he's cheating or not. So those technologies, definitely those disruptions are very much required, but at the same time, what is required basically is more of a, I would say, collaborative, experiential kind of a learning. And that is the reason I come over here, to have a collaboration with your institution, wherein basically whatever experiences that you have, whatever skill sets that you have, you will be able to impart them to my students. And think about 7.5 lakh students getting trained by this wonderful institution, and that is the reason why I'm here. So whether it is chartered accountant, whether it is company secretary, whether it is basically any industry, unless and until we come together, perhaps we will not be able to create the best kind of a workforce or a smart workforce. And that is the need of the time as such. So it shouldn't be just on the piece of a paper signing an MOU, but there has to be a very constant kind of interaction. There has to be basically you coming onto the campus, coming to the class, bringing students to your institutions, and that is how sharing experiences, that perhaps will go a long way in creating perhaps the best of the workforce, whether it is with your institute, chartered accountancy, or whether it is industry. Unless and until this kind of a mingling happens, I don't think a smart workforce can be created. So these are the things that I wanted to actually just share with you. Thank you once again for giving me this small opportunity to have a small chat with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot for your wonderful words of wisdom. And basically, the collaboration definitely will be signed soon with ICSI. Today, in some time, we will be signing that MOU. And I must mention that Parag Kalkar, sir, who is the Dean of Management and Law at Pune University, he was instrumental in devising this particular collaborative MOU, a complete MOU, when we discussed maybe a couple of years back. And I must thank him also. As a part of Pune University, he has been instrumental in doing this. So thank you very much. Now I request Dr. B.S. Sahai, Director, IIM Jammu, who is virtually present to say a few words.
Good evening.
Dr. B.S. Sahai.
I'm thankful to Ashish Gargji for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah,
The topic is very interesting, building a smarter workforce. It looks like that somebody said earlier that we were smart earlier also. This reminds me that, like say, in class 8th, I think in physics, we were taught that work done is equal to force into displacement. Meaning to say that if you apply force and if there is no displacement, then work done is 0. It means that just working hard may not yield result. If you really want to give better results, one has to work smartly. One has to work more smarter way. Now let's talk of this pandemic. I was listening to all these previous speakers and they were talking about pandemic. It's a fact that in last so many years, we are not able to penetrate technology into the society very effectively as being done in last 8-9 months. And that's a fact. Now, when we talk of creating smart city, smart workforce, smart technology, everything is smart. In my opinion, 3 things are required. One is that people, which is really important. And for that, we are discussing here that how to make them a smarter workforce. Second is that processes. Now, all laid down process has gone to toss because of this pandemic. A new normal has been set. And third is that technology. We're talking technology for a long time, but let me tell you, from childhood, any age, it's an ageless society now. Newly born baby prefers to play with mobile, and so is the probably 80, 90 years old gentleman or old man. So this is a new normal. And let me tell you, there are some great things happening. Like say this, because this pandemic was announced in mid-March, we closed our institute for a month. And again, we are back to campus on 22nd of April. Students were at their respective places and classes had to go on. And my previous speaker, he was talking very interestingly that half the exam was done and half the exams were yet to be done. Then what to do in that situation? So we did online exam, proctored exam, and it went so nicely. Classes were done. Whether you talk of primary education, whether you talk of secondary education, when you talk of tertiary education, everywhere. And we were able to adapt technology so fast, so fast. Everybody used to have this smartphone, but it was never utilized. It was just used for watching movies and some clippings and all these things, but never for such productive cause. And most interesting part is, besides classes, quizzes, exams, the whole admission process was done online. Part of the admission was done offline, interviews, and finally it was done online. But another interesting part is that, like say this, all recruitment. And now this is something really time to ponder, that when we used to have face-to-face interview, we used to have, very attendance used to be something around 60 to 70%. But when it became online, attendance was almost 100%. We had best of the experts coming to take interviews. And that really helped us to recruit best workforce, whether it is faculty members, whether it is officers, whether it is staff, anything. And the best part is, cost of hiring gone down drastically. Cost of this education has gone down. So what I'm trying to say that this, this technology adoption has really helped to a large extent, without compromising the quality. Yes, still a lot of research being done to ensure this thing, that how to create that class type environment. There is no replacement of face-to-face teaching. There is no doubt about that. But it is a definitely alternate arrangement. And I think that best model is now that hybrid model. We have our campus, we have set up off campus in Srinagar. We have campus in Jammu. All these places, whether we talk of training, whether you talk of teaching MBA program, whether you talk of teaching PhD program. Recently, we did this international conference. Our partner was University of Bradford, and more than 400 people participated in that conference. So everything is possible. It's a new normal. But we have to ensure that these things are done without diluting the quality. Without, the only thing which I experience is that many times my friend from IIM Ranchi was talking about, because he's a professor of OB and HR, and I don't know much about OB and HR, but during that COVID time, we experienced this thing, the behavioral part probably, you cannot see the attitude of that candidate, that how he's behaving, or it is just captured on the camera, that's it. Otherwise, but after joining, we found that that is also was a myth. There was no difference whether you're doing face-to-face interview or whether you're doing offline in this online interview. So I would like to see this thing, that this, the efficiency, the productivity of this hiring has gone up very high. The whole system has become very efficient. It has become very effective. So when we are talking of building a smarter workforce, we need not to teach them technology. They learn very fast. And particularly, I'm really proud of these youngsters. They are so fast in picking up new technology, adopting new technology everywhere. Second thing is that it has given a lot of options. Somebody was talking about MHRD platform. Likewise, there are so many platforms available worldwide, and one can, if you want to do some courses, probably he can join courses anywhere. And to say it is accredited, it is certified. What is important is that teachers should also be trained. They should know that, okay, how to teach online. And things are really improving very fast. So I would like to say this thing, it's a great idea that if you really want to work smarter, one need not to really work very hard. What is important is that apply your mind, use the technology, and work efficiently. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for your insightful thoughts on use of technology. Definitely, ICSI has already conducted one exam by Proctor manner for CSEET, and definitely we are thinking about online exams also in future. So thank you very much, sir. So now I request Dr. Renu Jain ji, Vice Chancellor of Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, to say a few words about the theme.
Honorable Shri Ashish Garg ji, President ICSI, Honorable panelists on the dais, Professor Nageshwar Rao, Professor Maitri, Professor Karmalkar, and Professor Nagarjan, and Honorable panelists of the dais, on the virtual dais I should say, Professor Sahai, Professor Madhu Vij, and Dr. Shailen Singh. All the members adorning the audience and members of CS fraternity. A very good afternoon and greetings to all of you. At the outset, I congratulate the Institute of Company Secretaries. Now I can have this liberty now. For having completed 52 glorious years on 4th October 2020. It is a great privilege for me to be a part of this historic occasion and address the galaxy of professionals present over here. As I understand, the Institute is the only statutory professional body in India which facilitates good corporate governance by promoting, regulating, and developing the high caliber professionals of company secretaries in India. It has contributed significantly towards nation building by furthering corporate transparency and social justice. I am very much impressed by the motto of the Institute, that is Satyam Vad Dharmam Char. These are the lines taken from Upanishad, meaning always speak the truth and abide by the dharma or follow the right path. These lines are very simple in appearance but very difficult to practice. In fact, these lines represent the essence of our mere existence on earth. If we go deep in the simple message, practice this in spirit, both on professional and personal platform, there will be no misgovernance. We will be self-disciplined, self-motivated, and self-governed. Then there will be no need for any external agency to regulate or watch our actions. Governance is nothing but doing right thing on right time in a systematic manner without intending to harm others. To compete and grow today, our strategy must be to continually encourage and inspire the youth in order to build a smart workforce which is equipped with the new age technology and innovative ideas and concepts. As mentioned, my predecessors, these professionals must possess high level of competencies in terms of knowledge, skill, and capabilities. The workforce gets smarter when it is not only efficient, but possesses a high level of sensitivity towards dynamic environment, along with being highly adaptable. We need professionals who are constantly evolving, innovating, and improving their capacities and knowledge. As we are all aware, during past couple of months, we have been suffering from the unprecedented health crisis, namely COVID. The economic and social fallout of the lockdown has already been catastrophic in its nature. Its impact on local businesses, daily wage earners, and millions of the poor who stand to lose their livelihoods cannot be estimated. The economy of almost all countries of the world have been shattered. As mentioned earlier, that this pandemic has created a sort of paradigm shift in every sector of life. So in view of increasing global challenges, our country's readiness for industry will determine the need of a smarter workforce. A skilled and low-cost workforce can help maintain the rankings and improve them as well. Growing awareness towards capacity building and learning skills for education can further boost our efforts towards creating a smarter workforce. Still, a greater and more focused effort in terms of increasing the skill of the workforce to excel in all requirements of industry is needed. To be effective in living and thriving in a global world requires not only a sound understanding of the way global society functions and interacts with local settings, but also a sound moral fabric that is committed to the principles of unity and justice in the world is required. Educational programs can contribute to preparing such citizens by responding to these twin imperatives. Today, our effort at rectifying the imbalances in our education system through empowering potential of skilling finds a deep connect with Gandhian principles of craft-centered education. Whatever we are striving for, learning for doing, work-integrated learning, respect for manual skills, self-reliance, through sustainable livelihoods. Concepts like these are deeply ingrained in Mahatma Gandhi's emphasis on manual and productive work as integral to basic education. In this pandemic era, the Gandhian way of life has assumed greater significance. His slogan, "Har haath ko kaam, har haath ko roti," has become even more relevant. It lays emphasis on accessibility of all resources to every person of the society and their optimum utilization. The principle of trusteeship propounded by Mahatma Gandhi should also be included while laying the economic policies. This will not only ensure sustainable development, but also include economic development. This will also lead us to realize our dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat. The National Education Policy 2020 also envisages some transformational reform in the Indian education system. As mentioned earlier, it talks about the education system that lays emphasis on experiential learning, along with a focus on developing not only skills like critical thinking, problem solving, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. Inspired by the rich heritage of ancient and eternal Indian knowledge and thought, the National Education Policy envisions an education system rooted in Indian ethos that contributes directly to transforming Bharat sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high-quality education to all and thereby making it a global knowledge superpower. Today, we are going to enter a synergic relationship with ICSI by signing an MOU. With this MOU, both the institutions will be able to create a bridge between university education and professional education, and thus enhancing the quality of education as well as employability avenues. We are taking drastic measures and putting in huge efforts in reconstructing our education landscape to meet the demands of the industry and economy at large. At this point, I just want to make two suggestions. First, we should review the practice followed by ICSI by introducing, you have already completed 52 years, now it's time to redesign your sculptures. That by introducing a course, we can introduce a course at university level so that the students will have a greater understanding of subjects. Because in the MOU, there is already a term that the degree of CS will be equivalent to a PG degree in subjects like management, economy, and commerce. So I think we can introduce a course at least at PG level in the universities. Secondly, in the interest of large number of students coming from village backgrounds, my suggestion is that this course should be offered in Hindi also. That will serve a very, means the Gandhian thought, and this will also serve the purpose of our new education policy. With these words, I wish this convention a great success and sincerely hope that through the brainstorming sessions, a new vision for social change will come out and our dream for self-reliant India could be realized. Thank you for patient hearing. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks a lot. And we definitely will take note of the suggestions given by you. And we would like to inform you that we already have the examinations in Hindi for ICSI. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So at this point of time, I request Professor Mahadev Jaiswal ji, Director IIM Sambalpur, who is virtually present, to
Hello. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Ashish Garg and ICICI team, fellow speakers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's really an honor to be part of this novel gathering. and talking about building smarter workforce. You know, we have seen disruptions already happening, and I visualize that three kind of disruptions are undergoing. One is, of course, digital disruptions. Also, we are witnessing disruption due to decarbonizations. And very soon, we have already started seeing the disruption in our business, that is democratizations. Now, in this kind of disruptions, we'll have to see that what kind of educations. So we come from the business school. In IM Systems, I'll talk more about that how educations are going to undergo change inside the classroom. And I feel that whatever knowledge is already created, which are available in the book, which can be digitized and easily available through Google and many other technologies, I don't think we should be spending time on that inside the class. And therefore, we should focus, because of digitalizations and digital technologies, it is easier to collaborate outside the class. And we should bring industry, academics, and problems inside the class. And that is the first step, that is called collaborations. We have to, now because of this digital disruption, collaborations is strengthened. Like we have seen, we can integrate within India, outside India, within class, outside class, industry, everybody can be together due to digital technologies. And therefore, collaboration has become much easier and much smarter. Next, once you have a collaborations, you can also think about experimentation, because no need to talk about what is already available, what is already known. So problem solving and unknown uncertainties, those things can be experimented with collaborations. And we can say that the problem can be assigned inside the class by industry and also by outside. And that can be discussed with the theoretical foundation provided by fellow faculty members, and students should be the problem solvers. With that, you'll be able to create knowledge. Not only you will be distributing knowledge, but you also will be creating knowledge inside the class. So we shift from knowledge distribution to knowledge creation economy. And that is what India should focus. And that is what new education policy also talks about. Once we are able to do that, I'm sure we'll be able to differentiate ourselves. And then we'll see that many of our institutions will become world class, and we'll be able to rank in the top 50 and top 30 in next 5 to 10 years, if you are able to do this knowledge creation rather than just knowledge distributions inside the class. Now, this is about the learning inside the class. Now, what's going to happen in the workforce? How industries are going to operate? And we have seen that the three kind of skills which are becoming important. One is agility. We have to adopt the change very fast. We have seen already in the last couple of months, we have adopted everything possible. We know many people were not tuned to the digital-based education, digital-based health services, digital-based e-commerce. All have no option but to become agile and adopt. So agility is becoming a very, very important characteristics for anyone who is working with the industry or even with the government. Handling uncertainty and unstructured decisions, that is where I think manpowers and human resource should be focusing on. Rest can be managed through digital technologies, like your logistic and distribution. Many things can be digitized, but it cannot be, we cannot handle uncertainty, ambiguity, and unstructured decision making by technology. We have to use human resource. So handling agility, uncertainty, unstructured decision making, that becomes a priority in the industry's decision making. And in terms of team, we are now witnessing a digital virtual team, basically your teams all across the world. And therefore, we must learn the new techniques, how to manage the team, a cross-culture team, which are digitally and virtually available. And that is where I think we have work from home, work from anywhere, work from, traveling, work from this. And so these kind of things will happen. And in order to do this, what kind of, differentiations will going to come from industry, and which kind of industry will survive? I feel that due to this disruption, due to digital innovations and digital innovation-based entrepreneurship will become the most important. That maybe a driver like Ola Cab can be entrepreneurs, can be Ohio householder can be entrepreneurs. So every person can become entrepreneurs, and that is where the strength of this digital innovation is. And entrepreneurship will not be confined to few large companies, but it will get distributed across every human being, those who would like to create business. And then only you will be able to see that the 5 trillion economy, which our country has been talking about, and particularly our Prime Minister has been talking about, I think that will become feasible when we start creating business in the digital base, and we start creating business which is more democratized, which is more distributed, and not confined to few pockets and few corporates. So this will be the differentiations in the coming years in terms of entrepreneurship. However, I strongly believe that even whether we talk about the smarter workforce or otherwise, the 3I will always be relevant. That is, every time we'll have to be innovations. Our workforce has to be innovations. That is one characteristic of smart workforce. It has to have very, very inclusive mindset. It should take care of the society and environment and surroundings. It should not be just creating wealth by destroying other environment. And it must have very high level of integrity and ethics. So innovation, inclusiveness, and integrity will be the main characteristics. It really want to be smarter. Smarter cannot be just digital. Digital will be only enabling these 3Is, and those who are able to create those individuals as well as companies and country which works on this innovation, inclusiveness, and integrity, I think that will become the big brand, and that will sustain for long. So I feel this is a great opportunities. The digital innovations and decarbonizations and democratization of business. I think these 3D are going to lead and see the future. And I'm sure we will be able to witness this in our career. And already big change has already started happening. And with this, I would like to conclude my opening remarks and thank again ICISI for inviting me for this seminar. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful insights, and the use of technology will definitely be a master stroke when we go ahead and work with the new challenges. At this point of time, I must tell you that we would have loved to continue the way we were discussing so many things, but there are few time constraints, and I would like to thank all the panelists for their wonderful insights and wonderful inputs. And I would request the people present here to give a good round of applause to all our panelists for their time and for their wonderful inputs. This will definitely help us in going ahead. Over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we feel extremely delighted to share that today ICSI is going to sign MOUs with IIM Amritsar, IIM Nagpur, Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, and Pune University under Academic Connect initiative of ICSI. Academic Connect initiative is an initiative of ICSI to create a connect between ICSI and various universities and institutes of national repute through MOU covering a number of schemes under one umbrella towards learning and development of students, academicians, and professionals. It's a proud moment for all of us. I request our President, Shri Ashish Garg ji, to kindly grace the dais for the MOU ceremony. A big round of applause. It's a proud moment for all of us. Now let's begin the signing ceremony, ladies and gentlemen. I request Director IIM Amritsar to kindly come forward for the MOU signing ceremony. Pune University. Right. Proud moment for all of us. A big round of applause for ICSI and IIM Amritsar. Thank you, sir. Now, thank you, Director IIM Amritsar and President, sir. Now I request Director IIM Nagpur, Dr. Bhima Rai Maitre, to kindly come and sign the MOU. A huge round of applause for Director IIM Nagpur. A huge round of applause. Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Renu Jain, Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya. Ma'am, please come forward for the MOU signing ceremony. Thank you, sir. Dr. Renu Jain, we request you to come forward for the MOU signing ceremony. I request the dignitaries to join our President, sir, for signing of MOU with Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya. Please give a very huge round of applause. Thank you all. A proud moment for ICSI. Now I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Savitri Bai, Phule University, Pune, to kindly come forward for MOU signing ceremony. Proud moment for ICSI, so many academic collaboration. I thank all the dignitaries for coming and signing the MOUs with ICSI. Thank you all. Now I request Shri Devendra Deshpande ji, our esteemed council member, to extend vote of thanks to our learned speakers. We'll have a group photograph, and after that we'll have vote of thanks. So all academicians in a single frame, proud moment for ICSI, IIMs, IGNOU, Indore, and Pune University. We are proud to have you all here in a single frame. Thank you all. So I request Shri Devendra Deshpande ji to extend vote of thanks to our learned speakers, and after that we'll present Shaheed Ki Beti certificates to our distinguished guests.
Abhi karna hai? Okay. So thank you very much. This was one of the first sessions of this hybrid national convention. And for me also, it was a new experience. It was a difficult, we all know that there were a lot of difficult times we have faced. But now, after listening to these academicians and people from topmost universities, we have got to know that there is a lot of positivity, and definitely this pandemic will be over soon. And we are going to have all our young guns, the young brigade, ready for the facing of all the challenges in future. So I think that whatever we have discussed today, even though the time and the galaxy of speakers which we had, had some miscalculations, but definitely we would like to hear from them going forward. And for that, we have also entered into a lot of MOUs wherein we will be interacting with them, and collaboratively, the ICSI and all these universities and IIMs will definitely help our young brigade to go ahead and face all the challenges in the corporate world. Personally, I would like to thank each one of the faculties, Dr. Maitri, Director of IIM Nagpur, Professor Nagarajan, IIM Amritsar, Professor Nageshwar Rao ji from Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, Professor Nitin Karmalkar, Vice Chancellor of Pune University, Dr. Renu Jain, Vice Chancellor of Indore University, Dr. Madhuvid ji for being present online, Dr. Vinita Sahai ji, she could not join, but she had thank her for that also. Dr. Shailendra Singh ji, who is IIM Ranchi, Dr. B.S. Sahai, Director IIM Jammu, and Professor Mahadev Jaiswal ji, Director IIM Sambalpur, for being present virtually as well as physically, and they were omnipresent here, and I thank for their wonderful words of wisdom, and that has really enlightened us for the future. Thank you very much. Thanks all, and let us give them a big round of applause.
Thank you all. Now I request sir to present Shaheed Ki Beti certificates to our distinguished guests. I request Deshpande sir to present Shaheed Ki Beti certificate to our virtual speakers also, to Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji, MD and CEO, BSE Limited. A big round of applause. I request Deshpande sir to present Shaheed Ki Beti certificate to Dr. Bhima Rai Maitri, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Nagpur. We are proud to have you here, sir. Shaheed Ki Beti certificate to Professor R. Nagarajan, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Amritsar. Thank you, sir. Your session was really fruitful. It was really honor to listen to you at this platform. A huge round of applause for Professor R. Nagarajan. Professor Nageshwar Rao, Honorable VC IGNOU. Sir, we are indeed proud to have you here. A huge round of applause for Honorable VC IGNOU. Professor Nitin R. Karmalkar, Vice Chancellor, Savitribai Phule University, Pune. We are proud to have you here, sir. A huge round of applause for Honorable VC. Thank you, sir. Dr. Renu Jain, Vice Chancellor, Devi Ahilya, Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. We are proud to have you here, ma'am. Your session was really wonderful. Dr. Madhuvich, Professor in Finance, Faculty and Management Studies, Delhi, and Council Member, Government Nominee, ICSI. Ma'am, your sessions are always so enriching, no? And your sharp fluency has really impressed all of us. Shaheed Ki Beti certificate to ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dr. Shailendra Singh, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Ranchi. Thank you, sir, for joining us virtually. Shaheed Ki Beti certificate for you, sir. We are proud to present you the certificate. Dr. B.S. Sahai, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Jammu. Sir, we are proud to present you the certificate. Your sessions are always so enriching, no? Professor Mahadev Jaiswal, Director, Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur. Thank you, sir, for joining us virtually. So with this, we thank all our esteemed speakers. We all are proud to have you here. Thank you very much. Thank you for such an enriching session. Thank you.